Hello, clan fans! I am so happy that Outlander Blood of My Blood has officially premiered, and can I say the first two episodes have been absolutely amazing, and honestly, I'm loving it so far, and I'm excited to see what the rest of the season holds as we explore the relationships of Claire and Jamie's parents. The best part is all of the little Easter eggs that are throughout the episode so far, and I am excited to see if there's going to be more for the rest of the season. And we are also going to get season 2 already. That's awesome. And yeah, no, just this is the year of Outlander, I tell you. And I'm also excited that season 8 of Outlander officially has not an exact date, but we have an idea of when it's going to be released, which will be early 2026. If you're ready to say goodbye, I'm not. But we'll get there when we get there. But for now, let us talk about Blood of My Blood, episode 1 and 2. Episode 1, called Providence, mostly focuses on Ellen Mackenzie as well as Brian Fraser. We get to see their backstories a little bit and the conflict that is starting up that we are going to explore more throughout the season. And we do get a little glimpse of Claire's parents, Henry and Julia Beecham. But it was actually a very interesting way that they integrated them at first, because I didn't quite realize that we were going to be introduced to them already in the 18th century. So their time traveling bit has already happened, but we do get to see in episode 2 just how that happens. But yeah, that was a nice little touch, I thought. But yes, we mostly explore Ellen Mackenzie and Brian Fraser's meet cute. And we learn about their home lives, and Ellen is basically going through a very difficult time because her father has just passed away and their family is grieving. However, the father did not name an heir because it's between Colum and Dougal. Remember them? They are basically trying to decide who should be laird, but they also need the support to become laird. Now the issue is, and they point this out a lot throughout, that Colum, obviously, he has his medical condition, so he can't be a war leader, and Dougal basically doesn't use his head. And we see a very prime example of that in this episode. The main issue is that Ellen was promised by her father that she did not have to marry against her will. However, her brothers are like, well, actually... And this actually is a very important plot point, which we will get to in a second. But in the meantime, she is just trying to get through her grief, and they are actually having a gathering which will help decide who is going to be the next laird. And while they are, we'll call it meeting and greeting everybody, potential suitors kind of show up for her. And one of them, not intentional, but happens to be Brian Fraser. Now we do get to meet him, and he, if you remember, Lord Lovett is, yeah, he's the creep of this show. Yeah, he's not the best father, and if you know from the story originally, we learned that Brian Fraser was the bastard son of Lord Lovett, and basically the relationship isn't the best. He obviously is still the son of a laird, but their dynamic's not the most warm and loving, let's just say. Brian is friends with Murtaugh, and we get to see young Murtaugh, which is insane. And honestly, I love getting to see their friendship, because it's basically like Murtaugh and Jamie's friendship. And I love that we understand where that dynamic came from. It's a very strong bond between them, but as we know, issues are going to arise because Murtaugh also has taken a liking to Ellen. And we know this obviously from the original show, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that comes in between, or between him and Brian's relationship. Another element that I really liked in the first episode is that we meet basically the entire family. So we've already met Jocasta, and it's interesting seeing her like in Scotland with the Mackenzies, because by the time we meet her in Outlander, she's already been living in America, and she's just kind of like far away from home. We never got to see what her life was like there except for one flashback. But yeah, I'm glad to get to see her and like understand her past a little more. And she also kind of has eyes on Murtaugh, which I'm a little confused about that part, because I thought it mentioned that Ellen's sisters were married, and Janet has been married, also another sister who we get to meet officially. But then Jocasta, is she married at this point? I'm very confused, because I don't think she'd be eyeing Murtaugh at this point. I know there's supposed to be another sister. Maybe that's the reference. I'm not sure. Because I think there was a Flora, but I'm confused on that part. Because the family tree is like everywhere. Which we know from the original show. And it continues to branch out. But yeah, that part I was a little confused on. But I think I'm just misunderstanding, maybe. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see her dynamic with Murtaugh, because as we know in the show, not in the books, but in the show, they do have a little affair, which unfortunately is very short-lived. But yeah, I'm curious to see like what their situation was like before. Now, even though Brian is not particularly wanted at the gathering because he is a Fraser and their name has kind of been soiled basically, but he still shows up there with Murtaugh because Lovett kind of technically wants them to spy on what's going on with the Laird and all that, because he wants to have a social standing with the clans. He just doesn't know how to do it in like a human way, let's say. Anyway, so this is basically what happens. Brian has to go hide from men because he cannot tell them his name because there's going to be drama, but these men are already bent out of shape about him being there. It's like, jeez. He goes to hide, and while he's hiding, he happens to meet Ellen, who is also hiding because she just needs a break from all the people. But yeah, they have a really nice meet cute, and they obviously have instant sparks between them, and Brian asks if she'll meet him like on the outskirt of the land, and eventually they go to meet at a bridge, and that is where they learn each other's names, which does pose a problem, but they still obviously have feelings for each other, so they actually come together on a bridge. It's kind of like a slow build. It's not an instant like, oh, I must have you situation, but just like a light touch of the hand and just being near each other. So I like that they are slowly building their bond together. So I'm definitely excited to see where that goes in the next few episodes, because you just know the tension's gonna grow. Now the issue with Ellen is obviously that she's a Mackenzie, and Brian is the bastard son and a Fraser. So he technically would not be a good match for Ellen while she's meeting Brian. There is an assumption that she has run off with a certain Malcolm Grant, and Dougal goes after Malcolm because he's leaving after he saw Ellen kind of like sneaking off. But Dougal, using his not brain, basically beats the heck out of Malcolm and accuses him of kidnapping Ellen, or at least taking her along with him, but it is made obvious that she's not there. Now, Dougal has caused tensions with the Grants. Now, Colum's idea is, in order to create peace between them, he thinks it would be best to offer Ellen to Malcolm. Hence, doing exactly what Ellen does not want and against their father's wishes. So that is going to be the main conflict of the season, and it's going to be interesting to see how Ellen is going to handle the news, and obviously she's going to end up with Brian. We know this, but it's going to be interesting to see how it happens, because we only know based off of the stories that Jamie told, and I just am really enjoying seeing all of it come to life and like learning more details that maybe we wouldn't have learned just from the stories that were told in the Outlander series. And if you noticed, like I mentioned, there were some Easter eggs, like the tusk bracelets that Murtaugh happens to get, and he's going to give them to a certain someone, or yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does that. But I'm also curious to see how the pearls come into play. But yeah, like, I'm looking forward to seeing all of this develop. And now that I've talked about episode 1, let us get into episode 2, called SWAK, Sealed with a Kiss. Now in this episode, we get to learn Julia and Henry's stories, or stories and then becomes one story. So we start with Henry, who is on the battlefield during World War I, and if you all know how bad World War I and II were, very gruesome, and they do not shy away from showing the horrors of this war. And Henry is determined to go save one of his men who has been mortally wounded, but Henry still wanted to retrieve him just so his mother would have someone to bury. But yeah, we just kind of learn about all the trauma that he's dealing with and all the horrible things that all the men have to go through. And this leads to Henry writing a letter, and he's just writing to anyone at this point. And we do meet Julia then, who is working at a postal censorship department. And it's actually interesting to see, because we don't usually get like that aspect, let's say, during World War I in any media that I've seen. Like, they actually show them like reading the letters and obviously like censoring any gruesome details or details that they maybe can't share with their family and friends. But while Julia is working, like, we learn like what her ambitions are, and she's obviously a very intelligent person. And she finds Henry's letter, and while she's at home, she reads it and she learns about him, what he's going through. So this leads her to pen one to him, and they basically become World War I pen pals. And it develops a relationship between them. And it's actually interesting to see like the differences, but also the similarities of what they're going through, because Julia also is dealing with like the bombings that are happening in England, and things are just getting really bad for Henry on the battlefield. But yeah, it's just interesting to see how that builds, like, when they're not together. And finally comes the day when they actually get to meet in person, and instant connection. Like, I'm not kidding, very instant. Like, things move fast. But yeah, I think they were just trying to like give you the idea of how quick their love story began and progressed, and they eventually get married. And we do learn that they have had Claire. There's kind of a really sad element to that. If you know, they technically, and I think this is in the books too, they technically die in a car crash. Like, I think that's canon in the books. There's no time travel element to it. But yeah, we see that they run off the road, while they're on like it's like a visit to Scotland. I guess they were on a holiday. And while their car has been crashed, they managed, thankfully, to survive and swim out of the river that the car fell into. And while they're walking, Julia walks ahead to see if she can spot like a road or something. But Henry hears her screaming. He goes to run to her, and he sees that she's not there. Now, what I'm explaining is technically the ending from the first episode, because this is very important. This is the missing piece that we don't see in this episode. But it all kind of pieces together eventually. And after we see what their lives were like in England right after they got married, we then jump back into the time traveling element. And Julia has already traveled. She wakes up in 1714 Scotland, and she tries to find people that are going to help her get back to the road, get back to the town, help her find her husband. However, the people that she runs into are not good people, and they basically kidnap her. Thankfully, she left a note for Henry, and she wrote SWAK on a rock, which he does find after he travels. And even though he basically has no way of finding her because she is long gone, she has been taken to Castle Leather. Castle Leathers, where Lovett is the laird. And she's basically sold into servitude to pay off a debt. Humans were absolutely disgusting back then, can I say? And still are, but the morals back then were even worse. Isn't that amazing? But yes, she is sold into servitude, and she basically does not have a say in this. No matter what she tells them, I have a husband, I have a child. They don't care. Business transaction is what it is. But yeah, she's stuck there. And she basically has to adapt. And at one point she does try to run off, but Brian tries to stop her, and he tells her, like, it's actually really dangerous if you do that. There's a storm, plus my father's men will come after you because I have a pride thing with Lovett, who, by the way, tried to come on to Julia more than once. This dude. He's gonna be the Bonnet this season, isn't he? Yeah, so he tries to stop her, but she still tries to run. Unfortunately, one of Lovett's men does stop her, takes her back, and she is about to be punished, but Brian, basically showing us how much like Jamie he is, says, like, actually, I tried to aid her, I will take her punishment. And he takes 20 lashes for her, and honestly, just, I loved the parallel, not that he got lashed, but just the parallel of, like, when Jamie took Leary's punishment, and it just shows how alike they are, just being, like, good, decent human beings. So I'm loving seeing, like, the traits that Jamie has in his parents. Meanwhile, Henry, who has gone to a tavern looking for Julia, he gets himself into trouble, because don't you do that when you time travel. He runs into Malcolm Grant, who is at this tavern, and after Malcolm buys him a pint, Henry's overhearing a conversation going on with the clans, and Henry remarks something that he really shouldn't have remarked because it's none of his business, but the men hear it and they get mad and they threaten to throw him down a well. However, Malcolm Grant stops them and he asks him, like, what, like, could you elaborate on what you said? So once Henry does, he decides to take him to his father, and he tells Isaac Grant, like, okay, if you're going to do a business transaction, you need, like, legal paperwork, and he just goes into all this stuff that probably most people back then really didn't think to do. But Henry kind of proves himself to be very intelligent, so Isaac sees potential in him. So he offers him a position that has been taken away from another man. And we see what happens to that man. I thought they were just going to show that he had been hung. So much worse. Head on spike. That's all I will say. Okay. So yeah, the show, obviously, like its predecessor, not shying away from the gruesome details. So yeah, we'll see what else we see in this season. But yeah, Henry basically proves to be like a loyal subject to the Grants. And he actually ends up going with them to the gathering, and we do see him in the first episode making small talk with Ned, and Ned at the end of the episode proposes to Henry, like, hey, I can help you find your gal, but first I want you to bring up the idea of Malcolm and Ellen getting married and bringing the clans together. So that is how Henry is going to come into play here. But yeah, not a great situation, because one little screw up and your head could end up on a spike, basically. Yeah. So yeah, he and Julia are in their unfortunate predicaments. It's already been a month and they still have not found each other. And they begin writing letters to each other, even though it's not obviously going to get to them. And we learn that it sounds like Julia is expecting another child, which I know they mentioned about like Claire having a brother or sister, but I guess it didn't occur to me that she was actually with the child at that point. So that adds another element to so many things here. Yeah. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm a little concerned. But yes, just getting to see Henry and Julia's story begin, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. They're probably going to show more flashbacks of them in the 20th century, because there is a clip that they show of them having Claire, unless... Oh, wait. Wait, are they going to show them having the second child? Oh no. Oh man, okay, I'm sorry. I just had a realization. I'd have to watch that scene again and see if I can detect what period they might be in. Oh man, that's gonna concern me. Okay. Yeah, let's see. This adds a lot of questions, basically. Like, so we know they are most likely not going to return to the 20th century. And even if they do, they don't make it back to Claire. We know that as fact. And that is actually going to be very sad, because does that mean they weren't able to figure out how to time travel back? Or did something happen to them in the past? Or even after they tried to travel again? We don't know. And we will find out, maybe not this season, but maybe in the second season. It'll be interesting to see where their journey goes. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack. I also wanted to say, just being in Scotland again was really, like, special, and I felt like being back in season 1, and just those vibes that we felt when we first watched Outlander. So that was amazing. And seeing Craig Nadoon again was honestly like seeing an old friend again. Like, Craig Nadoon is its own character. So I love that they brought that back, even if it wasn't book canon. I love that they're adding to the story this way. Also, it was interesting to see Ellen's relationship with her father, and she clearly had a very close bond with him, and we see throughout flashbacks, like, basically the conversations they had, and that's how the whole marriage thing came up as well. And when he was saying, like, he's not planning to die and he doesn't have to name an heir. Never assume things. Believe me. But yeah, that was interesting. Also, the fact that he said, like, he wished... He basically sees her more like him compared to her brothers, and said something like, it's just a shame you don't have a cock. It's like, maybe it wasn't the best thing to say to your daughter. But obviously this is a time when the women did not become Laird. Had to be a man, of course. And obviously Helen's kind of like taken aback by that line too. But she still loved her father very dearly. And it's just kind of a shame that he did leave her in that situation by not naming an heir, and it created a lot of tension between the siblings, and that's really not good. So I've learned recently, specify things as much as you possibly can while you can. And that is the lesson that we learned from episode 1. Also, I love the opening, like the theme song. It's beautiful. And I was not sure if they could top, or not top, but get something close to "Sing me a song of a lass that is gone." But I think I have a new favorite theme song. I still have to learn it, and I definitely want to hear it a lot more. But yeah, I love the opening. Very reminiscent of Outlander's opening, and it'll be interesting to see if they change. I don't know if they would change the song in this case like they do with Outlander, because I think they're just going to remain in Scotland. But obviously they're going to show different scenes like they do. But yeah, I'm just excited for the show. And I have just been anticipating this for like well over a year now. And the press and the media that it's getting is wonderful. I am so excited and thrilled that Outlander gets to live on. And I don't know how much further they're going to go past season 2, but I hope it gets to live on for a little bit past season 8 of Outlander, because it's actually a nice way of gently saying goodbye to a very, very beloved show. And yeah, this is like, I don't want to say the beginning of the end, but we're kind of at that point, and I just can't wait to see what the show has in store. But yes, what were your thoughts if you watched Blood of My Blood, both episode 1 and 2? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you for episode 3. I'm happy to be doing these videos. I wasn't sure if I would, but we're gonna try it. But yeah, hope you all have a great time watching the show, and I'll see you next time. Bye!